Let's see. Okay, it fits in there. I need to plane a little bit off at the top because I don't want this pressed right in against my door down here. So I was expecting to make some minor adjustments. And when installing this, my plan is to put, I don't know, 2 or 3 sheets of paper. You know, I want to have at least a 64th thickness. Maybe I'll put in like 4 little sheets of paper in between this and the door just to make sure that the door will slide without rubbing the bottom of this. So I thought it was noteworthy to mention, for a new woodworker, trying to build doors or drawers can be extremely frustrating. Mainly because you may not always have the tools that you know that a professional woodworker is going to have. Things like a jointer, things to ensure that you're getting 100% flat board. So I know that a couple of my boards had some cupping, and off camera, this is something that you're just going to have to learn to do and to work with. I've taken my plane and just kind of planed things down and made sure that they fit correctly. Just to ensure a good fit. And even then, I can tell that I'm maybe a little off here or there. That's going to give you some grief. But if I take that piece and I come across, you'll notice there's no gaps. If you look between my combination square, I've got no gaps. I'm perfectly straight across. I don't care about this one. This one had a little bit over. And I did take and put this in a bench vise and just run my plane over it through the middle a few times, and that took out my cupping. It didn't take a whole lot, a couple of minutes, just chop, 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 chop with the plane, a light cut, and now I have a perfectly flat edge. So your channels that fit in are also important, though, these rabbets that we cut. You need to make sure that those are nice and flat. If your board has cupping to it, depending on which direction the cupping is going in the board, you could end up with a rabbet that's a little bit off, which will throw your fit off. So I have, touched a couple of things up with a chisel and with a plane. Again, eventually I will get around to doing a video on planing for you guys. But that's going to be the hardest part for you, is getting your fit just right, the way you want it. And okay, so these were a little too tight, as you saw earlier. I took them off, and like I said, I have these labeled so I know which side they go to, just in case I'm a little off on each side. And I've just taken a block plane, put them in my bench vise, and just shaved a little bit off the top until they can slide in comfortably. My next thing, I'm going to shave down the top of the back, and I'm saving the front for last. I don't want to touch the front until I absolutely have to. So I'm just going to take a couple passes off the back. I'm going to put that in my bench vise, and I'll see if I can get you a camera angle of that. So before I hit this with the plane, I'm kind of looking at my grain, and I think my grain is kind of raising this way. So I'm going to try this by taking the plane this way. I'm just taking a very light cut right now. I'm just barely taking off a little tiny. But I don't feel anything fighting me. I don't feel any tear out. So let's advance my blade a little bit. See if I can get a better pass. that might be a bit much. Back it off a little. The reason that I'm taking this off the top is because I know I'm 100% square along the bottom, and I want to keep it that way. That's probably all it needs. Just to take a couple of shavings off. I took off a pretty thick shaving right there. So that will probably do exactly what I need to fit. But just for fun, pull out the sides here and see what happens. No, she's still a little, well, maybe. There we go. Just attacked that back edge a little tiny bit more. Since I was going this way, I kind of figured that might be a little high. Just attack that edge a little tiny bit. There we go. Much better fit. So this is basically custom fitting a piece of furniture, right? So now I'm going to reassemble this, test it, and see how it fits. Everything's beautiful right up to that front face. So I'm going to have to trim a little bit on that front face, and I'm going to have to be careful about how I do it. So the front, maybe I'll take a little off the top, a little off the bottom, and I'm just going to custom fit it until it fits in good. When I'm putting it in, I'm going to be looking at both the top and the bottom to make sure my lines look good. Because if I put this in, see, it does fit, it's just tight. And I want to have a slightly better fit than that. This is part of doing custom furniture. So I want it to have just a little bit more room in there. And so that's what we're going to do, is give it a little bit more room. Now the hard part is just kind of get it back out. There we go. So as I'm shaving this, I'm going to be looking to see how my lines look between here. Do I have a gap on one side or the other? I want to keep this nice and uniform all the way around. You'll get to that with experience. I'm also going to look at my grain, see if I can figure out which way I should be planing this. I think I need to be coming this way. Now we're going to give her a couple of cuts and see what she does. I've got a change in grain direction right there. I can feel it. From here on is smooth, from here back is not. You're going to run across things like that. What that means is, oh, maybe this tree had a branch that came out from somewhere in here, so the grain starts to change direction. You can feel it tear it out right there. That was a good shaving. Let me come back over here, come the other way. Not from there. Let's go from here. There we go. That's a little better. Let's check my fit and see how I'm doing. My fit is there. And I still have a nice tight line up against here. If anything, I probably need to go some more. But before I do that, I'm going to check how it actually looks once it's fitted together in the box. I know I'm probably out of square here. stuck on? Or am I just that far out of square? That's the other thing, you gotta make sure your drawer is in square. If it's not, your fitment's not gonna be right. You can start with that by eye, but when you put the actual thing together, you're gonna wanna check that. Okay. So, that feels a little bit off. Let's see if I can take that apart from this side. There we go. What am I getting stuck on? It's not the front. I've got one edge that's just slightly higher. Remember, I cut this down so that it slides smooth. So I can tell this needs to come down a little more on that edge. So alright, I think you guys have the idea of how to make adjustments to this. When I cut this box, I made sure that it was cut absolutely to measurement, and I knew it was going to come out big. That was intentional. You should always cut your stuff exactly or just slightly over. That way you can custom fit it, and it'll work great once I'm done. So I'm going to continue making minor adjustments, and I'll come back when it fits and show you how it fits. Here's an extra thought for you. What do you do if you don't have a block plane? Or you could do this even with like a number 4 plane. What do you do if you don't have one of those? Well, my suggestion is, you saw me assemble this right on the table saw when I finished it. Assemble it all, put it in, figure out what's tight and what's not. Make some pencil marks on the boards that need to be trimmed down a little bit more. And if this is my saw blade, come back to your table saw. Set your board right against your table saw blade. And then bring your fence over and just make it so it's snug. Okay? Lock your fence down. And then rerun your board through, and what you're going to do is take off maybe a 1/16 of an inch and make small adjustments with your table saw until this fits perfectly. A hand plane and block plane, it's one of those things you kind of have to learn to use, but if you don't have one, make ever so slight adjustments using what you've got. And a table saw will do that. And if you have issues on the edge grain, you can do the same thing with a compound miter saw, by the way, or with a sliding miter saw. You can bring your blade down, shove your board up against your blade, and hold it there. When you lift the blade and come back down, it'll take off like a 1/16 of an inch, which is perfect for making small adjustments. So there's your tip for how to do that, just for those of you who do not have a plane. Happy woodworking, everyone. This goes into my making adjustments for fit video. I've just pulled a block plane. I've noticed I've got one that's sticking out a little wider than the other, and I just want to make sure this is going to fit real good when I'm done. I'm just going to see what I can do. We're going to need to clamp the bottom of this down. Hold that thought. Sometimes it's nice to have a little extra hold on things, just so they don't move. So back on the subject of making adjustments to your drawer. Doors and drawers can be some of the hardest things in the world to figure out what you're doing with when you're a brand spanking new woodworker. So you guys have seen in some of the video that I should have showed you by now, this kind of had, when I was into individual pieces, I shaped it all to make sure that it fit into the bread box. And each individual piece fit fine. Now, that works fantastic until you put the bottom in. Because shaping each individual piece, I know each individual piece fits in, but the one thing that doesn't change is the bottom. That groove runs through this, so once you put this in, each board could theoretically be a little higher, a little lower, a little offset to one direction or the other. So it's good to go back over this and even everything up. And what I've done is I have set my block plane just to take a very, very light cut. And I've just kind of gone over it. Make sure you don't have any tear out though. That's the next biggest thing. And again, this doesn't have to be pretty. This is the first pass that I'm taking on the bottom. I actually did 90% of this on the top. Take off any loose glue that's on there. Kind of by working at an angle, I'm able to avoid tear out. So I'm just making a couple real light passes around this. And again, this helps if you can actually clamp this down. I think I'm actually going to lighten my cut even a little more. Let's see what that'll do. Yeah. So it's hard to do this one-handed with the camera in the way, which is what you're kind of seeing me struggle with that a little bit. But you guys get the idea. Just make ever so slight adjustments, and what you'll end up with is a drawer that fits real good. I've got a couple more spots that I think I want to adjust. And save the front for the last, by the way. Save this front face until everything else fits in flawlessly, and then come in and do the front face. And what I'm going to be looking for with that, I've got this 90% of the way. This slides in like a glove. See that? And then if I set this here and not push it in all the way, I'm watching this gap right along here, and I'm watching the gap down along my sides. So what you're looking for is to have a nice, neat, consistent edge. And she slides right in. And you can see I've got a real tight edge on these. I'll zoom in some more for you so you can see that. So along the bottom, you see no gap at all. That's because I designed this just to sit right on that. If you wanted to, you could, like the runners that I installed, you could put them up here and cut a rabbet in the side of your drawer for these to slide into and sit on. That works too. It's an alternate method. But you can see I've got no gap at all. So you may actually want to have a little bit of a gap for expansion and contraction. But it shouldn't expand and contract much this way, it should be this way. So I want more of a gap along the top and the bottom than I do along the side. I hope that makes sense to everybody. And now the next hardest part is to get it back out when you don't have the knob installed yet. I'm just using the edge of my chisel right in there. I know, I'll have to resharpen my chisel. But as you can see, I've got a real good fit now. And that's as close to precision woodworking as you can get. I'm going to continue to increase this gap a little bit, believe it or not, because I want it to have room to expand and contract. So that's where I'm going to finish up with the block plane, and I'm going to make this so light where I'm just taking off like sawdust cuts, because the drawer fits beautifully, and that's what we're looking for. So next we'll be sanding, and we'll be sanding this front face because I didn't do that before I installed it. That would probably be another good idea for you. Sand that before you install it. And I'm going to stain it, and once I have it stained, we are on to clear coat. This is literally the last couple of steps in finishing our bread box. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this series. I've had a ton of fun with this. And I think what I'm going to be doing next is a fretwork box, but I haven't decided my next project yet. I've got like 10 planned out, so I hope you guys have enjoyed and had a lot of fun with this. I certainly have. It's been an absolute thrill. I love to do woodworking, and I hope that's something that I can pass on to everybody else. So, thanks everyone, and we'll catch you when we're doing the polyurethane on this and finishing it up. Have a great day.